there, and welcome to the long goodbye edition of Running Wide Open with Joe VanHoose. I'm Joe VanHoose, and for the second time in under a year, this is my last show. So let's get right into it. It's time for the big deal. The big deal this week is me. I'm going away for a little while. Maybe a long time. It's too early to tell. So, for the second time in under a year, this will be the last show for Running Wide Open on Ocala.com. Now, I know what you're thinking if you've been watching this show for a while. Didn't this happen not too long ago? Well, it did. Because after all, I disappeared for about a month in October, but then I was back. But now I'm leaving. And just like last time, it's for good. Although it really does look like it's going to be for good now, because now I have like a big boy job to go on to. Not saying that this ain't a big boy job, but it's an actual moving process involved. Different terms. And now I'm leaving on top. So take that, America. But rather than getting into all of that, let's look at the future of racing and see what we can do to make it a little bit better. I'll offer up some suggestions in my 2 cents. I'm Joe VanHoose, and these are my 2 cents. Now, my good friend and fellow NASCAR rider Monty Dudden has a great story on his website, NASCAR This Week today, about how NASCAR is starting to lose the casual fan, and that's why a lot of ratings are down and attendance is down at racetracks. And you know what? It's all true. NASCAR has gone after the casual fan for a good 10 years and really has nothing to show for it at this point. Ratings are in the cellar. Attendance is awful. We got to do something about this. We got to help NASCAR out. So here's what we need to do. Now, I'm not going to say that we need to abandon going after new fans and new markets. We certainly can't do that. But I think the payoff here is first to go and keep your roots in the traditional markets that you've had for 50 years, 60 years, on racetracks where the sport was built. That's why I feel like race dates at Darlington and Martinsville and tracks in the southeast where the sport was nurtured are pretty safe right now, because no one else is doing any better for that, which makes you safer than anybody. Now, as far as keeping fans interested and intrigued, it's got to be even more than the competition on the racetrack. What NASCAR needs to do is loosen the reins and sell the drivers, which they've always been pretty good at, these NASCAR executives. But right now what they're selling is a pretty corporate, bland, vanilla, watered down good guy. But America's not that way. We Americans, we have our flaws, and we need to see them in our drivers. You know what made Dale Earnhardt great? He was really 2-in-1. He wasn't everyman, but he was Superman. And that's what we need in this sport. We need someone who the fans can relate to, but also look up to and say, man, I hope my kids turn out to be like that guy. I want to go have a beer with that guy. There's just not a whole lot of folks like that in the sport. Now, that doesn't mean that the people who are in the sport don't have that in them. But NASCAR needs to loosen the reins and let drivers be themselves. If drivers need to get a little upset, hot under the collar, throw a helmet at somebody, maybe punch somebody, let them. Fine them a little bit, but don't scare them with points. And the same thing goes with the rule book. We need more gray area for crew chiefs to work on cars, and we need more gray area for drivers to be themselves. Now, I realize that the corporations plunking $20 million down a year on these drivers probably want them to be nice corporate spokespeople. But you know what? I think companies, the same companies that are in the sport right now, may appreciate a driver who speaks his mind. It's worked for Tony Stewart. It's working for Kyle Busch. It's worked for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And all three of those do it very well. But everybody needs to follow suit. That's what's going to save the sport, personalities. Because after all, racing is racing anywhere, whether it's at NASCAR at Daytona or at the Ocala Speedway. But what has set NASCAR apart is the personalities and the people behind the wheel. and they certainly need to recapture that. I'm Joe VanHoose. That's my 2 cents, and this has been Running Wide Open. I'll see you around.